man. Hello, world. What's up? Welcome to Build. I'm your host, Matt Forte. We are here live at the Build Studio in New York City. Our next guest's latest album, Love Remains, drops March 15th, and it is a raw, intimate, powerful display of human emotion and a near superhuman level of talent. If you only know her for her work as the bassist phenom who's played with legends the likes of Jeff Beck, Mick Jagger, and Herbie Hancock, believe it or not, that is only a small part of the much larger story she has to share. And with Love Remains, we finally get to hear a little bit of that story. Folks, please make a crazy amount of noise. The ridiculously talented Tal Wilkenfeld is right here on this stage. Come on.
Thanks for having me.
Do it up.
This is so exciting.
Thank you. I am so excited to talk to you. Thank you so much for being here and hanging out with us. How are you doing right now?
Great.
Yeah, you having
I
a good
love
time?
being in New York.
It's perfect. It's nice to be back, right?
Yeah, it's my old home.
I was going to say, you cut your teeth here, kind of going from club to club.
Exactly.
And now you're here promoting your album.
I know.
It's wild. It's got to be a little surreal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
You just, you had some amazing shows, I heard, about Mercury Lounge. You played a little bit in L.A. How'd the shows go? How are you feeling about the live stuff?
I love New York audiences. Yeah. They're amazing.
Yeah, for sure. Is there, you know, when you look at all the shows you've played for years now, is there a difference in the energy you feel when you do like a show for Love Remains versus like when you're jamming on stage with like Bob or Herbie or something like that? Like, what is that tangible difference in energy when you're up there?
I suppose it's like less about the songs and more about like, am I the band leader or am I a sideman? Because I take on a completely different role, you know? When I'm the band leader, I'm like kind of in charge of everything that's going on, from choosing who's playing with me to the arrangements to writing the songs. My name's on the bill. When I'm playing with all these other people, like I'm contributing the bass. Yeah. And yeah, it's just a completely different experience. Yeah. I love both.
I was going to say, where does the needle fall? Is it kind of like right down the middle? It scratches a different itch, both of those?
I think that because I've spent so much time playing bass in various bands, and I've been lucky to like play with the best of the best, I just think like now is the time that I really want to focus on my own songs for a while, because I did that for over a decade, really. Yeah, for sure. So, but that doesn't mean I don't enjoy the other thing. It just means like I need to spend some time in this arena now. That's
the kind of stuff I'm excited to talk to you about. You know, this record, it's been a long time in the making. Here we are, less than 14 days away from it being out in the wild. And it really is, it's the first time, I mentioned this in the top, it's open, you're vulnerable. This is the first time as an artist that you're sort of opening those doors and being this way. Where's your headspace going into that? Are you nervous about being that artist publicly at this scale, like at this level? Like, what are you thinking as it's about to happen?
I'm not nervous at all. I'm actually excited for people to hear this side of me. Yeah. It's been a while in the making, you know, like I played with a lot of different sounds with many different musicians and many different songs, and so it's nice to like finally present these 10 songs that I'm super happy with, and they have a very cohesive sound.
How long ago did you guys like finalize, say like this is how long ago was the record officially like done for you?
I guess we finalized it at in 2016. Yeah, and then I kind of went off track a little bit because I sent the record to Pete Townsend, and
never heard of him.
No, neither. And then I ended up opening for The Who, and I did that for like that whole year, and that was playing this music with this new band that I have that you're going to hear tonight, and so then it just took a little bit longer to like, you know, to tour and then get back to figuring out how I was going to release the record and stuff.
Was that, correct me if I'm wrong, that was the first time you had played this stuff out live as well, right?
Yeah.
When you were touring with The Who.
Yeah.
That's an insane way to...
You know what's really funny is like I've had some weird, trippy experiences. Like the first time I ever sung for an audience was at Carnegie Hall with Herbie Hancock.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, like that was my first.
So let me ask you, now that's your first time, where does one go from there? How do you top that? How do you push yourself? Because you are constantly growing as an artist. This record is proof of your growth over time and how you've pushed yourself. But when you're someone and an artist that starts there at what for many people is the destination, what do you then do mentally? How do you keep pushing to be better and grow and do more?
I mean, I don't think there is a destination, really. Like, you know, you just do various things, and they're all like in the moment, and they're all enjoyable in totally different ways. So I'm just present with whatever is happening. For sure. Yeah.
Sign of a true artist. There we go. It's not the destination, it's the journey.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk about that journey.
Shout out to Steve Perry.
Yeah. Let's talk about that journey for a second, because as I was thinking about it, all right, so the record, we'll say 3 years ago, is locked, and you're playing it with The Who, and now here you just had some live shows a couple of nights ago. You're touring out the same songs. Have those songs, and has that live show evolved in the past 3 years? Have you guys grown there as you've played it over and over and around the
I believe we have, yeah. And I've been lucky enough to pretty much have the same ensemble play with me, and we're super comfortable with the songs. And like while we've been playing, I mean, this is our second stop doing a press event, and we've been experimenting with like different arrangements. It's just really fun. So yeah, it's nice. I'm very comfortable playing with them, and they're all really individually amazing players. Owen Barry on guitar, Tamir Barsley playing drums, and Chris Price playing keyboards and guitar. So. Yeah,
how did you go about choosing your super team? How did you find all those guys? How did you put your band together?
You're going to love this. Well, okay, so Owen Barry, I met him through Jeff Beck. Yeah. And I asked Jeff, like, who's a guitarist that'd be able to, like, play in my band? He's like, Owen Barry, he's the guy. Yeah. And he pointed me out to him in some, like, bar after a show. So I don't know. It took one other person telling me as well, and I finally called him up, like, okay, hey, let's jam. Tim LaFave, a bass player. And then Tamir, the drummer, I went to a club to hear a friend of a friend's band play, and somebody came up to me, and he's like, excuse me, do you have a cigarette? And I said, sorry, no, but I have a tampon. and he totally went with my humor, so I knew he was the right drummer for me.
Perfect. That's the litmus test right there.
Yeah.
The tampon cigarette test. If they pass that, then we're gonna be just fine on stage.
Exactly. And I went through we tried out a whole bunch of keyboard players, and it's kind of a tricky role in the band, because like basically they're playing every other part on the record besides the drums, bass, and guitar. So we just tried out a whole bunch of players, and we found Chris. Yeah. So.
What was, talking about the keyboardist having to play those different parts and those different things, how much of the record did you find in the studio? What was your writing process like as someone who's known as this great, improvisational artist, as someone who's played with all these amazing artists? When it came time to figure out your sound and define Tal's sound, did you find it in the studio? Did you find it through jamming? Like, what was that journey like?
I basically came, first I had a couple songs. And I knew Blake Mills, who's a really amazing guitarist and producer. If you're not aware of him, please do check him out. And I wanted to go in the studio with Blake, and I didn't know who was going to play drums yet. And I coincidentally went to have sushi with Ben Montench from the Heartbreakers, who's been a friend for a really long time. And he invited Jeremy Stacy, the drummer. And then Jeremy invited his twin brother, Paul. And so we just started talking about, I'm just writing this new music, and I ended up playing the music to them in my car. And they're like, this is great, this is great. I'm like, well, you want to try something sometime? And they were like, sure. I'm like, well, I know this great guitarist, Blake Mills. Why don't we go in the studio and just cut a couple tracks? I'm like, sure. So we arranged that. And I knew that once we recorded Corner Painter, that was the sound that I wanted for the rest of the record. So then I went home and wrote a bunch more songs, keeping that sound and that ensemble in mind. And also Ben Mont played on that song too, but it was an overdub. And I was like, okay, so what's going to sound good for this ensemble, and which songs complement this song? And so then I booked another 10 days in the studio once I had all of the songs ready to go. So I literally just went in with finished songs and didn't play any of the songs to anyone in advance. And these guys are complete pros, so they just heard the songs and learned them on the spot, and we came up with arrangements on the spot. Yeah, and so basically we had two keyboard players. We had Ben Montench playing piano and organ, and we had Zach Ray, who plays in Death Cab for Cutie. He's also on the record. He played all that amazing keyboard stuff. Really incredible, yeah. And Paul Stacey was the producer. He produced it with me. So
that's pretty amazing. Did you ever find yourself, because it sounds like it was such an organic and kind of almost magical process where it all kind of came together and all the pieces are falling into place, but you did have a vision. You had a specific place that you were trying to go sonically and you were trying to arrive there. Is it ever challenging as someone who is such a skilled improviser who can play, make it appear effortless? Was it ever difficult to nail it down and say, this is the part, I have to stop here? I was reading, I think you said Killing Me, you like playing live because there's room for you to kind of move around within the confines of that song. Was it difficult to define confines for you and like find out what the walls were?
It's not difficult, but it definitely was something that has developed with time, and not just developed in my project, but as I've gone into the studio with various artists and played bass on people's songs. Like, I always try to play the right thing for the song. Right. And that's what I like about all the musicians that are on the record and the musicians that are playing with me live now, is that they're always playing what's best for the song. It comes first, before any of the other stuff, you know. Yeah.
Outside, because that's a pretty big takeaway, what would you say, let's go second on the list of, because like we said, this is a long time in the making. You amass a ton of experience playing with some of these legends. There's no other way to describe it. What do you bring with you to this process? Was there ever a moment you were like, I remember when this happened with Jeff, and I can use that knowledge here to attack this situation? Was there anything like that you brought with you?
There was one moment where I was about to go on stage with Wayne Shorter, and he looked at me, and I must have looked a little bit nervous or something, and he just walked right up to me, and just like Miles Davis, when he came up to me, he's like, "Play Eternity." And then we walked on stage, and I have taken that with me, you know. And, you know, Bob Weir has said some similar things. You know, and I meditate, and I'm really into meditation. And before every show, me and my band have a 20-minute meditation, which is really helpful. Just keeps you present and grounded and focused. And all the other stuff, just put it to the side.
Well, it's interesting to hear you bring up that idea of like staying present and all that, because I was looking at your story, and you had a moment where your record was being finalized for vinyl, was being mastered for vinyl, and you were like giddy over it, which was like, I mean, why wouldn't you be, right?
Yeah,
it's a huge thing. But it was the thing that I loved about that moment is like, here you are, you're this artist for whom like superfluous stuff is thrown about. People are throwing, not superfluous, hyperbole is thrown about all the time. You're playing with legends. You're a protege. All these different things. Have you had to actively sort of keep yourself grounded to hold on to that spark and stay giddy? It was so exciting to see someone who could very easily, justifiably be jaded, not be jaded. Like, it was so amazing to watch that moment and see that joy as you were like, this is my record. And it's like, you played with Jeff Beck and Bob, like all these different people, but that was still special for you. How have you held on to that and held on to that spark and kept it fresh and special?
I'm just in love with music.
Yeah.
I always will be. Yeah.
How far, what's your earliest memory then of that love? How far back can you go?
Apparently when I was 3 years old, I was like humming and singing along to Vivaldi, although I didn't start playing guitar till I was 14, but apparently I had rhythm, or so I'm told.
One of the things I read that I thought was great is that everyone talks about how this is your big departure, you're doing your own thing, and in reality, before you went down the path of instrumentalist, you said you wrote similar to the songs you were writing now. Is there almost a bit of closure for you, like a coming full circle kind of thing?
Completely. Yeah. Yeah, the first time I picked up a guitar, I started writing a song. I don't think it sounded like this music. It was probably a lot more simple.
Right.
But it was singer-songwriter music, you know, telling a story, basically.
For sure.
And I'm telling a story now, and these stories are, you know, influenced lyrically and musically by everything I've experienced, touring and otherwise, in the last, you know, over a decade.
Are there any seeds you think that were planted years ago that are finally like allowed to sort of grow and bloom here? Things, maybe not specific moments or musical ideas because you have grown and evolved, but themes or things that you remember from when you first started writing, you were like, I could finally exercise this here.
I think when you're a child, everything is so simple, and as you age, you complicate things, and then you can find yourself tapping back into that childlike quality of simplifying things, especially when you're writing songs. And I've talked to a lot of songwriters about this, and it's usually the simplest thing that cuts through, like just such a simple thought. Yeah.
For sure. What's your most proud this whole record? You're proud, obviously, but is there a moment that you still get chills when you hear it? A breakout moment on this record, a moment in a song, or anything that stands out for you?
Well, on Haunted Love, which is just a track with just bass, I had a dream when I wrote it that I was going to record it with an orchestra, and I thought, there's no way in hell I'm ever going to be able to afford to play with an orchestra. And I somehow managed to make that happen, and it was probably one of the most amazing days of my life. I was crying because it was just so amazing. Yeah, to play with an orchestra. Yeah, I want to do more of that.
Yeah, you should. It sounds great when you do it.
Thanks.
It is so cool to have you here, and I'm really enjoying talking to you. I do have to go to the audience for some questions. We're going to do that in 1 second. But one, I want to remind everybody that the record is right around the corner. It's the 15th, March 15th. Love Remains. Mark it in your calendars. Pre-order it. Get ready for it. You're going to be listening to it a lot. And also, for those watching at home, don't go anywhere, because after we do audience Q&A, we're going to do we get a performance, if you can believe that. How cool is that? All right, so Kate, I got a question in the room. I do. There we go. First question, only question right here in the front. Go for it, sir.
Hi. First of all, you have to perform on nights I don't work so I can come see you. But this is really a two-part question. The first is, out of all the basically rock gods and so on that you've worked with, which was the easiest for you to mesh with? And the second is, who was the most intimidating, if any of them?
That's a really difficult question. Because it's less about them and it's more about you. Like, if you go into a situation with an open mind, then you can mesh with anybody. So.
Did it take you time to figure that out? Or was that something that was kind of intuitive for you? You just came, you love music, you came to play. The fact that these were legends that were asking you to play with them, that was secondary. These were just amazing musicians. Like, how did you wrap your head around that in the beginning, in the early days?
I think you just gotta always know your place, like what your job is. You know, my job is here to serve this artist, and that's my job. So I'm gonna do that. Yeah.
Go do my job.
Yeah.
Love it. Sir, if I can get your information so we can coordinate her schedule around your work schedule for her future performances, I feel like we could maybe, I'll see what we could do there. Kate, I believe we just had the one, right? Because we want to get right to the music. Good call. All right, so I'll remind everybody one last time, I keep looking at this, I don't want to mess it up. March 15th, Love Remains is going to be out there. Do not go anywhere. We're going to take a quick second to set things up, and then Tal Wilkenfeld is going to play some music for us, if you can believe it. Everybody, please make a ridiculous amount of noise. Join me in thanking Tal.